All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Here's Johnny.
Vanity. Definitely my favorite sin.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
The power of Christ compels you.
This is my boomstick.
What's your favorite scary movie?
What up, horror heads, and welcome to Shiver, a horror movie podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Daniel DeBona.
And I'm David Ulloa.
And we are continuing the year of the monster, the month of the zombie. And we're going overseas. We started off, well, I guess we did start off overseas last month. Now that I actually kind of step back and think about it. We did start off overseas, but we're going way overseas this week, all the way to South Korea with a film called Train to Busan, released in 2016, I believe. 2016. Train to Busan was something that really kind of took the world by storm 8 years ago when it got out there. And somehow, Dave, you missed it. Let's get started here. Let's just jump right into it because there's a lot to talk about with this movie. So in Zombies Abroad, we're going here. We're going to go over to South Korea. And Dave, tell us what you thought about Train to Busan, man.
So this is one that had been on my radar for a long time because I remember Jeff, former panelist, friend of the show, he saw it and told me, like, you have to watch this movie immediately. And I can't remember why I didn't get around to it at that time, but it's one of those movies where little by little, like as time goes on, people keep mentioning it.
Right.
And so it had never really left my radar. And for one reason or another, I have just never gotten around to it. And when you threw out a couple of options for what you were thinking about, I tried to subtly, but probably not so subtly, get you to choose this one, because then I would have an excuse to watch it. Then I would be forced into watching it. And it wouldn't be like, oh, I guess I'll get to it at some point. It would be like, no, motherfucker, you're going to watch it now. And I am so glad I did. What a fucking movie. Wow.
Yeah.
It has it all. I feel almost like Stefan from that old SNL bit where he'd talk about like this like insane nightclub in New York City. Yes, Stefan. Him. Yeah. I don't know what more could have been put into this movie. Like it everything, including the kitchen sink, is in this movie. It's action, it's comedy, it's drama, it's tension, and throughout all of it, you're on the edge of your seat. So few movies, I think, had me on the edge of my seat like this, where when the movie was over, like, and you can feel the movie winding down. I was like, no, keep going.
Yes.
Keep going. I need more. And I can't get enough of this. I wanted to immediately start again.
Yeah, this movie is incredible. I remember when this movie came out, I didn't go see it in theaters or anything, but I remember it was like you said, it was just popping up everywhere. This was something that it was just of the websites that I visit on a regular basis, everyone was talking about Train to Busan. It was just this nonstop deluge. And I was like, okay, as soon as I can catch this on some sort of streaming service, I'm going to watch Train to Busan. And so I did. And this is one that I watch this one about annually. When I do 31 days of Halloween, this is one I will always just try to find a different category to put it in. It's like, it's international, it's zombie, it's in the 2010s. Like, I just find a different category of my buddy's categories that he releases. Shout out to Chip Valentine. one of our listeners. He creates 31 days of horror movies every year. And so I always manage to just fit Train to Busan into a different category. So I have a reason to go back and revisit this film. So last night I sit down and I watch it again. And what's absolutely incredible about this movie is it hits so fucking hard that now 8 years later, when I have seen it an absolute minimum of 8 times in the past 8 years, it still hits just as hard every
it's a gut punch.
damn time. And it happens so much in the movie. There are so many amazing tense moments where you're just built up, and then maybe you get some relief, maybe something awful happens. There are these incredible dramatic moments that still were giving me goosebumps last night as you're watching. This thing is a masterclass in storytelling and using the zombies as a backdrop to that, but then also featuring them prominently. It's not just a comedy movie with zombies or a drama with zombies. I mean, it
is a zombie movie.
It is a zombie movie with all of these other things crammed in. I mentioned last week how when I ran across this Wikipedia article that was literally just called List of Zombie Movies, it's massive. God damn, it is huge. And as you're going through and you start to be like, oh yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah. And then you come across one like this, where it is a zombie movie with all those other things packed in. You start to realize how poorly some of these other things are treated by just shellacking some other script on top of a backdrop of zombies.
Right.
This is the zombie movie that you want to be everything done right. This is the Korean fully dressed chip of zombie movies. It is sweet, it is bitter, it is salty, it's meaty, it's everything. I never cease to be amazed by Train to Busan, and it is one of those ones that, I mean, we're obviously not really burying the lead here as we lead into this. This is a movie that I recommend to so many people. Like, as soon as zombie movies come up, I'm going to mention the same couple. I'm going to mention, okay, well, have you seen, Night of the Living Dead? Because if not, go do your homework. And, I'm going to be like, okay, have you seen Shaun of the Dead? Right? Because that's like the pinnacle of zombie comedy. And then I'm going to bring this one up. And I'm going to be like, and then there's just the fucking mountaintop of what you can do with a zombie movie.
Yeah.
And it's Busan.
I feel like there's a couple of these zombie movies that everyone has heard of and knows something about.
Right.
And is just one of those where, like, if you put it on for them, if you can just get them to sit down for 5 minutes, you've got them. There was I was toying with the idea of picking Versus, the Japanese film,
God,
for Zombie Month.
Hell, we could do that during Ghosts, during Vampires. Versus can just pop up.
Yeah. Yeah, horror mafia movies.
Yeah.
Horror movies with a trench coat.
Taking note.
Anything. I think like it kind of falls into that like Versus category where it's like a lot of people know that movie, but I feel like not so many people have seen it because it's a foreign film.
Right.
And immediately you're going to get the people that are turned off by the fact that they have to read subtitles. And you do have to read subtitles in this one. This is not a horror movie that you could just turn it off and it's like, all right, cool, I'm here for a good time. You will be flabbergasted by the visuals, but there's a story here. And it is about the characters. This is definitely a character-driven story. And I think that alone kind of drives people away. And particularly, I think Asian cinema is so fucking good. And I feel like everything that I see comes out of South Korea just blows me away. And it could be a product of like, okay, we're only, exporting the best of what we've got.
Right.
you can definitely make an argument of that, because I can tell you that the Bollywood movies that I've seen are all fucking spectacular. But then you see
Yes.
some you see some stuff on the internet, on Reddit, on TikTok, on Instagram, and it's like, where the fuck is this stuff? Because I definitely want to get drunk and watch this.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
wow, there's something here, and I wish more people would. As much as I say, like, people keep talking about it, it's genre fans that are talking about this. It's not the masses.
yeah, and that is a big thing, right? When you look at something that's amazing about this movie was made for less than $10 million,
$8
which
million.
yeah,
What the fuck is that?
yeah, like if you've seen Train to Busan and you were listening to us right now, I hope it just blew your mind that all of these visuals and all of this amazingness was done for less than $10 million. Marvel can't shit on the street for less than $10 million. Like that, that's there's $10 million in effects in a gauntlet going on one time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, the one shot that we've got behind us, which is the very first zombie shot of the movie, on the train, that would have cost $8 million to produce. Yeah,
easily. So you look at that, and then you look at eventually, it ends up making just shy of $100 million. So, like you said, for everybody that talks about this, you always end up finding the same thing: is they're genre fans. It somehow didn't. The only thing I can figure is it didn't find that massive cross appeal, because you've got people like my dad who just like, I don't want to read. Like, I watch movies so I don't have to read. Okay, fine. You know what? Peacock offers it with English with English dubbing. Watch it that way. But it's to your point of the stuff coming out of Asia being amazing, all of it, right? I have and I always find myself in that same situation you're in right now, where it's like, is all of it that good, or am I just only hearing about the really good stuff? Which I'm sure,
right.
I'm sure that over in Asia, they're getting Marvel movies, but they've never seen Pro Wrestlers versus Zombies, a real movie starring Matt Hardy, that popped up on Peacock for me to watch when this one finished. Oh, I'm gonna watch it.
I was gonna say, did you watch it already?
Not yet. I was pretty tired last night, but it's happening. So, I feel like those types of movies don't make it over there too. So, but there's something about the Asian style of storytelling that I think is going to appeal to you and me, and just the people who can appreciate a good story being told through everything that's happening. And whenever you go back and you look at, in the early 2000s, there was a glut of American horror movies that were just made, that were just copies of Japanese horror movies. That's where we got The Ring. That's where we got The Grudge. That's where we got Shudder, Pulse. So many of these things, they all come from that. They're all these Japanese ones. And I've seen every one of them I could ever get my hands on, and both versions. And the one thing that never holds up in the American version is telling a story without directly spoon feeding exposition. And the Asian style of storytelling that comes across in all of those movies that I just mentioned, Ringu, Ju-on, and this one, Train to Busan, it's so subtle. And you could, if this is the type of movie where, and all of these are, where if you're not paying attention and you miss one scene, the next 15 minutes might not make any sense. If you miss the baseball player character, which, by the way, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I'm going to attempt to not massacre Korean names. So I'm going to reference people by physical attributes and what they did in the movie, because Korean is a language far beyond me. So if you miss the scene, dude, I have been studying all day, and some of these names are like, phonetically, you look at them and it's like, okay, that's not bad. But then also phonetically, you look at them and you go, there is a lot of margin for me to accidentally say a racial slur while trying to pronounce that gentleman's name. And so I will be referencing, people as best I can. If you miss the scene where the baseball player says there's more people in car 15, they're held up there, that one throwaway scene, then you're wondering, the whole time, like, well, where are they going? What are they, oh, okay, well, they rescued these people, what's next? They set it all up with just a little phone call between him and his girlfriend. We never had to be just immediately like, we didn't need the captain to come on and make this announcement about where everybody was. And it's all just really, it feels natural. Nobody ever just stood back and was like, this must be zombies and they must have some sort of virus. We never got some scientist breaking down for us how you kill them, why they're alive. None of that mattered. And so, and all of them are like that. You go and you watch Ringu, and it is very subtly an apocalyptic story. It's not just a movie about people that are getting killed by this girl crawling out of the TV. It's a story about the end of the world.
Yeah.
And that just those little things where culturally that's how you tell a story are amazing to me, and really, really far beyond me, because as somebody who loves the sound of my own voice, has ADHD.
It is a good sounding voice.
Thank you. Has terrible ADHD and loves to get people's attention. I'm awful at telling a story succinctly. And so when I watch one like this, where it's like, this movie's not even 2 hours long. They just pack it all in there. And I just, every time, absolutely flabbergasted by this movie.
Well, while we're on the subject of storytelling and, the Japanese art or Asian art of storytelling, in a section that we're calling Brains, Trains, and Automobiles.
Genius.
Thank you. Daniel, is there anything in the story that to you is particularly hits close to home, or is something that you really identify with? Is something that kind of just spoke to you?
We talk about it all the time. We're teachers, right? So we have that job. For anybody who's here in Tuscaloosa who knows, I not only work at the school, I'm the director of the extended day program. I also work a couple nights a week, sometimes at a bar here in town. And I have for going on 8 years now. I have been working all 3 of those jobs. So one part of this story that always hits so hard is just the idea that the main character, played by Gong Yu, he's just working constantly, and he's so caught up in it, but it's never portrayed that he's just some greedy fund manager who's just in it to just make money. We see that he's a single dad. We see that he's living at home with his mom, or she's living with him.
She's living with him. Yeah,
she's living with him. So he's a single dad who's supporting both his daughter and his mom. And this is a man who's just out there trying to make the damn thing work. And that part always, I like, that is such a relatable thing to me. But then having this moment of it taking some world-ending traumatic event to, very clichély, when I say it like this, make you realize what matters most, that always hits. But what I love about it is they don't go the super cheesy route of making it all about, oh, well, now you see what really matters. Because when he meets the other gentleman on the train, Yoon is his name in the movie, the big dude.
Yeah.
And the big dude doesn't immediately give him some lecture about how, like, oh, you're going to work until you die and miss everything. He just says,
you're a bloodsucker.
Yeah. Well, no, but I'm talking about when they're locked in, not when they first meet, when they're closed in the bathroom.
Yeah.
He says to him, dads make ton of sacrifices and they get all the shit.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say, that my children's mother has not made plenty of sacrifices, because I know she has. I'm not claiming I've made them all. But it's interesting to see a movie that's not just that old trope of, well, now this guy knows what really matters. Like, there is some, lending credence to what he does because he's trying to provide for his family. So I love that. And And when it just comes to the story of this, man, just making a trip and shit going bad. I mean, how many great movies do we talk about where that's the entire premise? You're
Yeah.
on the road, you're trying to go do something good, and the world ends. And what now? So as you work your way through the story of this, and the way the characters are slowly introduced, the way that everybody kind of gets their moment in the sun, again, it's very beautifully built, like okay, so you whenever you go to those places that make giant burritos, your Chipotle, your Moe's, whatever, they always have that option where you can just like have them pile whatever you want into a tortilla and hope it comes out good. But I'm not a burrito artisan, right? So I'm gonna trust you, and I'm gonna say that this list of ingredients up here on the wall and that one burrito is good. This movie seems like it should be somebody who was just piling as much as they could into a burrito and seeing if it worked.
Yeah.
But it turns out the guy making it was a burrito artisan, and all of those things melded together perfectly.
That's a beautiful way, I think, of saying that this movie should not work, and yet
Exactly.
it does. It's like, have you ever had grilled watermelon?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird
That
one.
sounds like something where it's like, but why? Like,
Yeah.
it's perfect as is, like, I'm not I'm not this kind of guy who's like, God gave us the perfect thing. But it's like Mother Nature definitely perfected fruit when
Yeah.
it created the watermelon.
Just pop it right off
Right.
the vine. It's good to go.
And it's perfect. You
Yeah.
just have to crack the fucker open, right? But some fucking guy thought, you know what? Let me slice this thing and let me put it on a grill. And then I'm going to throw that shit in with some salad, fucking arugula, some fucking feta cheese. Yeah, what the fuck? And I can't fucking explain it.
Yeah.
But it works. It really works. And that's what this movie is, because you have a mix of the father-daughter story, right? And it could be mother-son, it could be any combination of parent and child. You have that story there. The story of single parent. You have the story of parent trying to make it for their child. And that's a lot of stuff to fit into 1 hour and 40-minute movie.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have all the social commentary that goes along with that. Because the train is an allegory, right? And and all the passengers are allegorical. And yet somehow it all comes together to be better for it. The story in its simplicity simply allows, I think, characters to transcend the page, where they become human almost.
Right.
Because every single one of those characters seemed like they were entirely based on a real person. If it weren't for the fact that it was shot so stylistically, I would say, well, this was a documentary.
Right.
And all they did was point a camera at someone and say, pretend it's not there.
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of the best thing about this movie, is that it is in every possible way realistic. And all the greatest horrors are the ones that happen in my life and your life, that we see presented on the screen.
Right.
And the zombies are kind of explained in a very similar way as they are in just about half of all other zombie movies, because it's either some sort of religious mumbo jumbo, or it's some sort of scientific mumbo jumbo. That's it. Those are really the only reasons why zombies come back from the dead. And went the 27 days route, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a preference. To me, what I want to see is flesh ripping and tearing.
Yeah.
And they did that in a real way here. And beyond that, they gave us what I love most about not just Asian cinema, but Italian cinema as well, which is style.
Yes.
It is so stylistic. And I know that in doing a little bit of reading on this, that they kind of based the zombie look and their approach to how the zombie would behave on various video games, some of which I've played. And I saw that there, but I also saw a lot of anime and I saw a lot of manga there.
Yeah.
And I, as a fan of anime and manga, going back to like I remember as a kid, like watching Voltron and being like, that's the fucking shit. That is fucking
Yes.
awesome. You know, watching Gundam, watching all that stuff, like Japanese style, Asian style is something that like really, really hits with me. And the crossover between East and West is not so significant a crossover as we might think, because for as long as we've been a global society, both sides have been influencing each other.
Right.
I remember first learning about Akira Kurosawa by watching Italian westerns, you know, and then being like, oh wait, that's based on something, and then like going and watching the original, you know, Japanese, and then being like, oh shit, hang on, this other movie, Magnificent Seven, is based on one of Kurosawa's movies too. And then I come to realize that Kurosawa himself was just doing what he had seen John Ford do, you know, in the 30s. And so as we all influence each other, I think it makes melding of cultures where you have this like bombastic South Korean style here. And it's undeniable, because I think one of the things that South Koreans do in a lot of the stuff that I've seen is like they are not afraid of light and they're not afraid of color.
Yes.
And they use it to great effect. And that's one of the things that I love most about this movie, is that it looks beautiful. It looks absolutely beautiful. And this is one of those kinds of movies where like I'm definitely an old school like movie guy. Like I love the way things look on film. Like I geeked the fuck out with Poor Things. I don't know if you saw Poor Things.
I have not seen Poor Things yet. I think it just came to streaming. I've got it on my list.
Yeah, we saw it on Hulu just like 2 weeks ago or something.
Right.
And the thing was shot on film. And you can tell right away. I was like, holy fuck, hang on a second. And I paused the movie. I started reading up on it. Like they got Kodak to start producing Kodachrome again. They haven't produced that shit in like fucking 30 years. And they were like, yeah, we'll make it for you. I fucking love that stuff. And yet I think that because of the amazing potential that we have with digital cameras, movies like this are possible, where you can do some of the crazy wild things that they're doing in this movie, like rear projection.
Yeah.
Like we haven't seen rear projection really since like the fucking 70s.
Yeah.
And yet they're bringing it back, and they're doing it in a totally different way, because this is not a real train.
Yeah.
And yet everything that they do, the technical side of this all helps support the story, because it's all about like, how do we get these characters to show us that life's worth living, and it's not just worth living for you, but it's worth living for others too. And I think that that's a really powerful point, because we often, whenever we hear that like someone is struggling and going through like a difficult time, we tell them like, you know, you got to pull through for you. And that's true. But sometimes that's really difficult to do. And sometimes the easiest thing is to say, hey, look, right here, me, do it for me. Do it for me right now. And then tomorrow you do it for you. And that's something that I think is really present here, because although I don't think that suicide is one of the main themes here, as much as it's a problem like in the United States, it's a big problem internationally, and it's a big problem in Asia. And I think maybe, and I haven't looked at numbers in a long time, but I think maybe in Asia more than anywhere else in the world, young like adolescent suicide rates are like through the roof. And so when you have a movie whose message is keep going, because you got to keep going, not just for you, but for the future, for me and for her and for everyone around you, because you make the world a better place, because you can make the world a better place, even if you're not doing that right now. You can. That's a powerful, powerful message to give to someone in a way that maybe they weren't even expecting that.
Yeah. This, I mean, you know, one of the things about this movie, you were talking about the style that is so great is this movie is gruesome and brutal, and
Mhm.
yet they do it with very rarely actually showing us, like we don't get like a moment where like you're seeing the tendons rip and stuff like that as
Right.
they bite in, and a product of the budget, but sometimes a movie shows you just how to do it right, and that's absolutely what they did here because I would put this movie toe to toe with any zombie movie out there comparing the brutality. And then you just have to make the argument of, how do you define what's brutal? Well, I don't
Mhm.
know. It's like what's obscene, right? I know it when I see it. And when you watch this movie, if you would say that it's anything but brutal just because you're not actually watching somebody's, like neck and throat get ripped out by teeth, then you're kind of missing the point
Mhm.
because this
And also,
movie
don't be such a fucking nerd.
yeah,
All right, don't
exactly.
have such a strict definition of something.
I mean, you look at a scene like when they're trying to transition to the other train and the baseball player and his girlfriend are trying to break that window,
Mhm.
and shithead businessman tosses her as a distraction to the zombie so he can get free. And when the baseball player guy realizes what happens, he's done. Like that
Mhm.
moment that you were talking about of, do it for me. Like his why is gone now. He's lost his
Mhm.
entire team. As far as he can tell, the world has ended. And now his maybe girlfriend, right? Like
Right.
she's gone too. And he just sits there and he cries. And it's this just beautiful and heartbreaking scene as he's holding her and he's watching her change. But the way that they chose to shoot that scene, suddenly the camera is down the train car
Yeah.
and we just kind of see his shoulder and like half of his body outside of this door. And you can see that he's holding her and he's just weeping. And you're watching her body start shaking, which, as we've seen throughout the movie, is the last step before the
Right.
change. And then she just lunges up and immediately gets him. And it's heartbreaking, but it's also just this amazing less is more moment. You weren't waiting for something visually brutal to happen because you were allowed to just you got this weird voyeuristic moment of watching something heartbreakingly tragic and happen. And it's interesting because I feel like if the camera had been right there, it would have been like watching a scene in a movie where that happened. But by pulling that camera back down the train car and making it seem like you were just someone who happened to be there, like I always feel bad that I get to see that scene because he should have just had that to
Yeah.
himself. And it creates this really weird feeling in that scene that I just like every time I get to that scene, I'm always like, what scene gets to me like this one does? Because it's not even just, oh, this is just a heartbreaking death, and this is one I'll always remember. It's something specific about the way that scene is shot that always just blows me away. And it's all
Yeah.
of those stylistic things that set this movie apart.
It's very voyeuristic, the way it's shot.
Yeah.
Like you said, like a lot of the movie is shot with wide angle lenses because you kind of have to as a product of being in these train cars, right? If you want to get as much action in front of you, you're shooting with a wide angle lens, and that um it has the effect of like putting you right in the action because it feels like everything is right around you.
Right.
But and there's an intimacy that happens there, but there's a different way of bringing about intimacy, which is when you kind of bring this like voyeuristic thing there where it's like I'm watching something I shouldn't be watching because this is a moment between these two people here and
Right.
I'm intruding on this moment in the same way that their escape was intruded upon by the businessman, right?
Yeah.
And so what they do is they go really far away and they use a telephoto lens where now this thing it's not capturing a really wide angle of view. It's showing you very narrow and it's bringing them close to you. And so it's forcing you in to see this thing that you don't want to see. It's not dropping you in the action. It's saying, hey, look at this thing. Here, you can see it on your phone. And it's right in front of you. And you can't look away now. So I think that's what it is. I think you hit the nail on the head there. The way that scene is shot, I remember thinking, because I mean, there's so many things that happen, you know, even just before that, where it's like, oh my God, where does it end, right? And then all I could think at that moment, when I'm looking at the businessman, is how many lives do you have to destroy before you realize what you're doing? Because the hero, right? Sakwu, I think, right?
Sure.
Something like that. I'm gonna fuck them up too, so I'm just gonna call him the hero, right? He realizes, like, almost as soon as shit hits the fan, like the moment that that the big dude, Sanghua, I think, is how you say his name. The moment that he calls him out, and he was like, "I think you owe me an apology," like that. There's something that happens where he's like, "No, man, no, I don't owe you an apology," and he's like, "Really? You don't think so?" And it forces him to start thinking on it, because he's like, "But you saved my daughter, and you didn't have to." And you know, so there is something magical about that moment. And there's one other point in the story, since we're talking about story moments. I think the situations that they're dropped in, because plot is almost non-existent, right? It's, you know, just survive. Situations become really, really important here. And once the train derails and you see that the little girl's trying to wake up her dad, and you're like, okay, what's the situation? Where are they? She's crying. So, like, clearly there's no immediate danger because they're not trying to be quiet. And then you realize exactly the situation they're in, where, like, the train has tilted and there's zombies banging against a glass to get to them. To me, that was the moment where I was like, there's no movie like this movie.
Yeah. You know, and for all the action and the drama that we've been talking about, we said at the top that this movie packs in everything. What's incredible is when this movie does make you laugh, it does it so efficiently. It doesn't involve really long setup jokes or anything, and it does it at these perfect moments to break the tension, where you welcome the laughter and just that moment to breathe and forget about how dire everything is. And the one every single time is when they're in the bathroom, and like I said, they've been talking, and the big guy is saying a bunch of stuff about, you know, like, oh, maybe you're not that bad, or blah blah blah. And then the hero's just like, why is your ringtone so tacky? And then the big guy's like, is it tacky? How do you change it? And it's just like, it's so
tension broken.
Yes, exactly. And you get that moment, you go, oh, I don't know when the last time I did that was, because until then they're crawling through train cars, avoiding zombies, because one baseball bat hit to the head isn't taking these things out. These are relentless. Because, you know, we'll talk more about the actual zombies later, but it's not a simple thing to take one of these guys out. And so when they do get it, they don't have to get overwhelmed by 100 of them, 200 of them. Like when you're watching something where it's like, oh, survive in the city, oh, survive in the woods. They got to be coming from everywhere. You're on a train. There's the way you came from and the way straight ahead of you. And you got 8 to 5 feet on either side of you. And so it's, you know, we talk about economy of characters all the time. This is economy of zombies. They don't need a ton of them when they're on the train, but when they do need a ton of them, holy shit, can they pour them on the airport? They turned an entire South Korean military unit. When they're leaving the train and they form a human blanket that they're crawling across because they can't catch up to the train. it's just it's ah everything about this is just I'm always finding just something tiny and new to like rave about when I watch this movie. And I'm so glad you've seen it now.
I'm seeing this too, and I kind of hate myself for not like making the time to watch it. But I think we should move on because otherwise we're just going to sit here and
Yeah.
gush over over the
Well
story of
played.
the movie. So in a section that we're going to call passengers, let's talk about characters here, right? And that's really I think where this movie is strongest, believe it or not,
Yeah.
as much as we just spent like half an hour talking about the story of this movie. What characters really speak to you?
Um I I want to start off with this particular character because I think the one thing that we do on this show, and it's not a negative thing, we're just we are both lovers of beautiful things, and so often we watch these movies, and the beautiful things that we get to love as we're watching those movies is a woman in those movies. So I would like to
Mhm.
take a second, and just in case anybody ever claims that we are not equal opportunity. And I would just like to point out, can we just take a second to acknowledge what a fucking dreamboat Gong Yu is as Sakwu? That
Dude,
dude
that
is
is a beautiful man.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yes. There is
Yeah.
there is just something about him that is just ridiculously alluring. You immediately believe him as this like a successful or burgeoningly successful. He says at the
Mhm.
beginning he's just a novice at it. But you look at him and you go, yeah, yeah, that guy's on whatever Korean Wall Street is, right? And he's good at it. And like, and you see him immediately, and then you find out he has a rough relationship with your dad, and you go, yeah, of course that guy. Look at him, he's so good looking. He doesn't have time for a daughter, and you're like, you're looking at this guy, and it's just every time you learn something new about him, I immediately just look and I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's exactly how he looks. Like, by the end of the movie, it's like, this dude is the Messiah. It's like, yeah, he does look like Korean Jesus, like I'm blown away at how well he showed visually and through his acting character development. We didn't need long monologues from him to explain that he'd become a better person because at the beginning he basically tells his ex to fuck off when he's on the
Yeah.
phone with her, and by the end he's suddenly concerned that there's blood on his face and on his shirt because as far as he knows next stop is Busan.
Mhm.
And so you see him cleaning up and it's like, oh man, this guy is evolved. He's changed. He cares about maybe repairing this marriage that, as his mother said, was so casually thrown away.
Mhm.
And we see him, his sense asks his assistant, what a kid's like, comes home with a weed. Turns out just bought her one,
Already got
the
one.
exact
Yeah.
same one. And it's like, and you're like, oh, okay. And then by the end, all he cares about is that song that she's going to sing and that they're going to be together as a family. And we didn't need a long, like speech to his daughter to get that. But then to culminate it all, what we get is him seeing his life flash before his eyes. And even through the makeup and the special effects of the virus taking him over, through the contacts that have completely clouded his eyes, you see this moment of elation
Mhm.
in his face where
She's gonna
now,
live.
yeah, she's gonna live.
Mhm.
Like, you know what? I'm about to die, but I win because ultimately I did what my job as a dad is, and I made sure that she's safe. And you see all of that across his face as we're getting these cuts to him remembering her birth. And just and then in the middle of all that, he goes from uptight hedge fund manager to I just beat the shit out of zombies with a baseball bat like a fucking pro. Like this guy's batting 880 right now in the South Korean zombie league. Like, he don't miss. And and as far as we know,
that.
he's never swung one, right? So it was just the way that he acted, the way that he interacted with people, the way that he evolved as a character, I think is one of those things that, as much as we've talked about the story of this movie, seeing character development and seeing people like him respond feels real, and you feel invested in it. Like you want to see him live as much as you want to see shitty businessman die. And that's what's important. Just I always end up going back to this, but it's just like wrestling. You've got to see the good guys suffer in an attempt to be successful, while the bad guys lie, cheat, and steal. R.I.P. Eddie Guerrero. You've got to see it come together like this for the story to be complete. And this movie gives damn near every face on screen that moment. And he just happens to be the one who's on the cover. So I took him first.
And not a bad one to take first. That's, I'm torn. Okay. So, the big guy.
Yeah.
Sang-Hwa. Wow.
Wow.
This was a performance that for me was just wow. Like I'm speechless. I'm never speechless. I have the words. I know the words. And yet I don't have them for this. So I'm not going to try his name because I'm going to butcher it, but I was familiar with his work only through Eternals. And I think I may be one of only like 4 people who liked Eternals. And one of the things that I liked most about Eternals was his performance. And I was like, fuck, dude, like I've seen a lot of Asian cinema and I haven't seen him. So I guess I haven't seen as much Asian cinema as I think I have.
Right.
But he knocked my socks off in Eternals. So when I saw him show here, I was like, fuck, I know that guy. All right, nice. And then he ends up playing the most likable dude in the world. Like,
yeah.
Literally everything he did was to either help someone else or to save someone else, or I don't understand how someone can be that good. And I think I'm a good dude. I think I'm a really good dude. I think that I'm at least a couple standard deviations above, the average guy. And yet I look at him, I'm like, fuck, I want to be that good. I want to be like that. And particularly the way that he plays off of his wife.
Yeah,
man, there is so much love there. There was a definite chemistry there. If you would have told me that they were married in real life and actually liked each other, I would believe it. I would really believe it. If I suddenly heard a story that on set those two were at each other's throats, I would say, you know what? I don't know what's real anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
There's and then there's the fact that like he's this gentle giant, right? Because like he's this giant hulking dude.
Talk about hero moments when he finally takes off his scarf and his jacket, and you just get that like camera shot right above his massive shoulder span. Woo!
Yeah. He takes off that jacket and it's like, dude, there's no hiding the corded steel that's under the jacket, but very least it was like doing a decent job of kind of making him a little bit more toned down, right? Because he's kind of blending in with and this is another thing that I love about this movie. The fucking fashion in it.
Yeah.
Like I'm one of these guys that I'm always looking at like, oh, I really like that jacket. I like those shoes, or whatever. Dude, the fucking sport jackets in this movie were out of hand. and he's wearing maybe the nicest one, right? So like I was distracted by that a little bit, but I was like, no, I done seen Eternals. I know what you got under there. And then he fucking takes that jacket off.
Yeah.
And his fucking biceps are as wide as my torso. And I'm like, fuck, dude.
His build reminds me of that the dude from Enter the Dragon, whose name I suddenly can't think of.
Yeah.
Like yeah, that one. The one who looks like who's built like this guy. But yeah, it's like like the first time I saw this movie when his jacket came off, like that was the first flash I had was them getting to the island and Enter the Dragon and him like standing there bowed up. I was like, oh, okay. All right, yeah, I've seen this guy. Let's go.
The big guy, the one he's got to kill. Not the final guy. Fuck, what was his name? Oh my god, now I got to look it up because it's going to drive me insane.
But yeah, I like that. I like that you used the phrase as you look it up there. I like the phrase
Bolo
that
Young.
you used. There we go. Thank you, Bolo.
Yeah.
I like that phrase that you use of gentle giant with him. Because yeah, he's big. Like we watched this guy just grab a zombie and slam them into the roof of the train. And it's not like these zombies are children or decaying, so they weigh less. They were humans 45 minutes ago. And he just slams them effortlessly into the roof of this train before picking them up, picks one up and holds back a battalion of them just by standing there. And then at the same time, this guy is just sitting there making jokes about his unborn child, Sleepy. And getting this little girl to rub his wife's belly to calm her down. You know, he was perfect dichotomy.
And then there's that moment where like I think they still haven't figured out whether they're gonna work together yet. And they're leaving the train station. And he shouts at him, you know, look behind you.
Yeah.
And then like or duck or go in or something, and then like just very narrowly, you know, avoids death there. And then he runs out and is like, where the fuck is he going? What is he gonna do? And then he comes back with a giant fucking riot shield and a baton, and it's like, bro, you do whatever the fuck you want. Like, I don't need Marvel because I've got this guy.
Yeah. I mean, he was I was torn as to which one I was going to go with first because he is my favorite character in this movie. And I think that he gets a much kind of flatter story arc because we're very much the character that we're introduced to is the character that we lose at the end.
Yeah.
When you go to look at him, but it's because it turns out he's just the perfect human being. Like this man, this man didn't need to evolve or learn anything. This is a guy who had it together. He's got a wife that he loves. He's got a child on the way, and he just he gets it. This is one of those guys who sees into the matrix of how to live life, and he has just hacked the thing completely.
He's got it. Yeah.
Yeah. This guy's got the cheat codes.
But you also get the feeling that he's got the cheat codes because he made the mistakes already.
Yeah.
And he learned from those mistakes because there's a sense of wisdom there that he's able to portray. And it's all in the patience that he has.
And he does seem a lot older than the hero, even though he's only just now having what we assume is his first child. Right. So like so I think you're right. I think that again, that visual storytelling, you're looking at him and you're watching him act and you're like, this is a guy who's lived it. And yeah, he's just figured out how to be happy. So from characters that we love to characters that we love to hate, he's barely on the screen, but man, for a movie where the main antagonist is zombies, I think that what we get in the corporate COO of Stallion is a villain, and there is no other way to describe this man. He is only a villain, and he is one of the shittiest and most diabolical assholes that we have ever had the displeasure of talking about on this show.
Yeah.
He immediately always, immediately is introducing him. I'm the COO of Stallion, and I heard this is true, and we've got to go decouple the train, and this, that, and immediately convincing everybody that he's always right, and this guy's infected, and we've got to send him off there. And every fucking thing he does is so despicable and disgusting. And this is a man who we actively watch sacrifice at least 2 people so that he can survive. And you've got to assume that that is just metaphor for the fact that that is how he became COO of Stallion. Is he is quite literally a man who does not care how many bodies he leaves in his wake, and we get to see that visually portrayed. He has so little screen time, and yet I detest him so much more than villains that we've discussed on this movie. There is, or on this show, there is not a single redeeming quality about this dickhead. Even when he is infected and he has that weird, like, childish moment of like, oh, I'm lost, I'm from Busan, this district, blah, blah. It's like, dude, I don't fucking care. I'm just upset that he didn't throw you over the railing before you were fully gone. He knew you were infected.
Yeah.
He should have chucked your ass. But you know what? He's a good human being. And he, much like, in a gunfight, he had to wait for you to draw first, so it's not a murder.
Right.
And, but, and
like
again, but it was, even in that moment, it's like, no, I don't care. You are completely irredeemable at this point. And suddenly having a fever that makes you think you're a child again does nothing for me. I don't care that you're about to die.
Yeah, no, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I don't know that I've ever taken as much pleasure in the downfall of a villain as I have in this guy, which, by the way, like, perfectly cast. Like, I totally buy this guy as the evil, the corporate, fucking guy. And the thing is, he's probably a perfectly nice gentleman.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There's nothing inherently, like, on his face that says bad guy, like Matt Smith, I think, has bad guy face.
He does. And it threw me off for so long, because even though the first place I really learned about Matt Smith was Doctor Who, I always got that too. I was like, but why do you look like a bad guy, bro? Like, I don't know if it's because it's real boxy. Is it the square jaw?
I don't know. I think it's a combination of features, and I mean, I don't think anyone is inherently evil, but I think that I think that we read into what's going under the face,
Right.
And that kind of influences us into like, oh, that's the bad guy face, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think it has to do with, like, an unconventional, good-looking quality. I think you have to be slightly good-looking, but not in the conventional way. Because, like, Matt Smith's a good-looking dude, but not in a conventional way, right? He's not David Tennant, right? David Tennant is a beauty of a man, and Matt Smith is, a really good-looking dude. I wish I looked as nice as he does, but there's something there. I don't know what it is. And this guy doesn't have bad guy face. Everything he gave us was in the performance.
Yeah.
Man, he was, fuck that guy.
Yeah. Mads Mikkelsen. There's another bad guy face for you.
Yes. Yeah. When I remember watching Rogue One and thinking, like, nah, but he's actually like a fucking Imperial, right? And then when in the end he wasn't, I was like, holy fuck, that was the biggest, like, surprise of the movie.
Yeah. Bad guy face is a very real thing.
It is. It is.
All right. So who else?
Okay, so I'll mention one more, and I'm again torn because I'm not sure who to mention here. Okay, so I'm gonna go with Kim Soo-won, who plays the character Soo-won, the daughter. Right, her performance, I think, from the very beginning was like, I knew this girl was gonna make me cry.
Right.
I was just watching her interaction with her dad, and I'm like, this fucking girl's gonna make me cry. I know she's gonna make me cry. And then she fucking did, like, constantly.
Yes.
Anytime she opened her mouth, what came out of it was gold. Anytime that she gave an expression, it was gold. There's I can't explain how this little girl moved me. And that final scene, man, where she is saying goodbye to her dad, and like he's thinking, I got to get out of here as quickly as possible. And they haven't really had an opportunity to repair what's been done. And what's been done is like life, like there is nothing malicious there. Like you
Right.
pointed out, he's trying to do the best that he can for himself, yeah, but also for his daughter, for his mother. We get the impression that maybe for his wife before there was that split. Because there's a couple little lines here and there where like it seems like there's a longing that things would have worked out, but that maybe the mom isn't really in a place where she wanted to be in that relationship. Whatever it is, there's damage that's been done and not undone, and he takes time to repair as much as he can in that final moment with her. And the way that she just bawls out and bears her soul, to me it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating. And I was torn between whether I wanted to mention her or Jung Yoo Mi, who played the big guy's wife, the pregnant woman. And that moment at the end with both of them, where she's just holding her as she cries, and she's a smart little girl, so it's not like she doesn't know what's happened here. It's not like she doesn't know what's about to happen outside. It's rare that I'm moved, and like I'm a crybaby. I cry for fucking everything,
Right.
like wind will make me cry. And this was one of those moments where I was like, in a horror movie, I don't think it's very rare for me to have been moved that way.
What's amazing about the little girl is the scene where he's watching her performance on the video camera, and you see how devastated she is that he's not there, and she can't finish the song. And just in that moment, you're like, this girl can act. And
Yeah.
it's just wild. There are certain things we're used to seeing kids, do well in a movie, but portray that level of emotional devastation
Because
in
there's absolutely zero indication as to what it is that made her stop. None.
right,
And yet,
exactly.
it's written on her face.
Exactly. That was absolutely incredible. The scene where she kind of freaks out and she screams, "You don't care about anybody but yourself. That's why mom left." Right. And I mean, the whole time you can see that she's, obvious. It seems like neither one of them is a bad parent. Like you said, you're right. It's just like there's damage there, but it's because of life. And something that we didn't talk about when we were talking about the story, for all of the things that we always talk about social criticism when we do Romero movies, there's an element of what we're given through this family dynamic in this that is, from what I can tell from movies and my limited experience with things South Korean and just kind of overall Asian, is just that relentless work ethic. And so there comes a moment there where things like that just absolutely skewer that idea that it's business and success above all, that we tend to see come across in movies from these regions. And so there is a very heavy dose of social critique to be found within this too, especially when we kind of get the one throwaway line of the fact that the company that they've been convincing people to invest in is the one who's behind this, and the fact that the villain that we've talked about hating so much is a COO. And so, it warms my cold black heart when a major corporation is the bad guy ultimately.
Yeah.
So as we're going to continue the month of the zombie here, there's a section that we're going to keep around, just like when we do slashers, we always got to talk about them. We got to get into the section that we're just eloquently calling zombies. Now, if you ever want to throw a lit match into a can of gasoline and walk away, find a bunch of horror nerds,
I'm
and
down
just say,
though.
yeah, and just say shuffling zombies versus running zombies, and then just fucking run. Don't hang out and watch them all eat each other alive. But since it's just the two of us, that's the discussion I want to have. This is like you said, a 28 days later virus zombie that is fully mobile and very, very quick. Does that work for you?
I'm not anti either, but I definitely have a preference. And my preference is the slow moving, shuffling zombie. To me, it has to do with simply the fact that the very first horror movie that I loved was Night of the Living Dead. I saw it, I don't know, maybe 5th grade, 6th grade, something like that. And I was just totally enamored. And that zombie is what, to me, became zombies. It was the prototype for zombies. And in all the Romero movies, which I love so much, that's what they were. Even in Return of the Living Dead, which is another series that I love, that's what they were. The running zombie, to me, I remember the first time that I was like, oh, okay, that was different. It was the Dawn of the Dead remake.
Zack Snyder's.
And I was like, yeah, Zack Snyder's. And I remember thinking, that's different. Oh, if I preferred it, but I didn't hate it. There's very few running zombie movies, I think, where I'm like, I would have preferred the slow zombie. Because I can tell you that in Zack Snyder's, like, yeah, it helped with the pacing because his pacing is very quick. He's got a lot of those like fast cuts, and then he'll do the slow motion thing, which works when you're running full tilt at someone. But I could have done with the slow zombie with that one. I can't do slow zombie here. I think that it has to be a running zombie here, particularly because of the hyper stylized movement that these things have.
Yeah.
To me, every frame of zombie in this movie looks like it could be right out of the comic book, The Walking Dead. It looks like it could be right out of any Resident Evil video game, where like the zombie turns and looks at you just before it starts coming at you. There's so many like iconic frames that I have in my mind of zombies, and I feel, and we're seeing one right here. There's whoever choreographed this, like the zombie movements, the everything from like the way that the virus spreads throughout them. It's just perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I wouldn't change anything about this, even in making them slower, because I think particularly for close quarters like this, it had to be that they were these fast running zombies.
Yeah, I'm very much in the same boat with you, as I don't dislike either. I'm always amazed at people who are so vehement in their stance of only supporting one because of movies like this. Because of a movie where the fast zombie is required. Yeah, no, I don't want to see Night of the Living Dead with fast zombies, but I also don't want to see Train to Busan or 28 Days Later with
Was
shuffling
slow.
zombies.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's not the movie. And so I've never understood this. I like you say, yeah, have a preference. That's great. Enjoy one more than the other. The only time that I can think of that I've ever been really upset over a running zombie versus a walking zombie was World War Z, and that's just because it was just a complete massacre of the source material. Like that in the movie World War Z, the running zombie was a necessity. And so I get it. I just and maybe the first time I've said it on this show, I just wish that movie was called something else, right? But I digress. When you if as long as you're giving me the zombie that I need in that movie. This is a movie that takes place a lot on a bullet train. I don't want to see just a shuffling zombie trying to catch up to a bullet train. It doesn't make any fucking sense. I don't want to see like I don't want to see a zombie that you can just kind of casually stroll away from because they can't swarm you. The running zombie is so necessary here because the threat of the shuffling zombie is in numbers. And like I said, for the most part in this movie, they don't get the numbers game. They're in tight spaces, so the running zombie is a necessity. I love the running zombie. I really do. And I honestly don't even know if I have a preference, as long as when I watch your movie I feel like you used the right one. As long as I feel like you chose the right type of zombie, then I'm okay with it. Just like a running zombie wouldn't have made any sense last week on Serpent and Rainbow, because there was no reason for him to suddenly have any sort of supernatural speed or just reason for moving very quickly. So I think that the zombies we get here are perfect for this movie, and I fucking love that idea that they're mostly blind because the virus seems to
that was really cool.
Seems to eat their eyes up. So it's the milky eyes aren't just an effect, like a special effect for visuals, that whatever the virus is doing to their eyes actually affects their vision. I mean, as in low light, these things are blind. Like they're standing right next to him, staring right at him, and they can't see a thing, even though the tunnel is dark, but it's not pitch black. It's got lights on the side. But these things definitely seem to be damn near blind. And that is a really interesting thing, because there's always, it's like, okay, well, how do they know what's a zombie, what's a person? The Walking Dead says, oh, well, they can smell that you're not dead. Night of the Living Dead is always kind of like, well, you move like a person, right? So like, but in this, it's just that they just kind of barely know, because they can't really see, but we never see them attack each other. So they can be, but they're always clustered right up. They obviously don't seem to give a shit about each other, which is, also great. But I do love.
Did you get almost like a hive mind kind of feel from this?
The train yard, especially. Especially because, yes, okay, sure, there's a loud sound, right? But I mean, they all started moving as a unit, and like in Max Brooks's zombie survival guide, there's like a whole section on whether or not the hive mind zombie is a real thing. If you've never read that, by the way, How to Survive Zombie Apocalypse or the Zombie Apocalypse Survival Guide, it's fantastic. It approaches the whole thing very factually. It's beautifully, just wonderfully written. But he dispels the idea of the hive mind zombie, and so it's funny because every time I start to get that idea, I'm like, no, Max Brooks said that zombies don't have hive minds. And so like I just kind of pushed it out of my head. But there were moments where I did get that hive mind feel, yeah. So I think that the fast zombie is perfect here. I think that this is the evolution in the fast zombie from Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead 28 Days Later. I think this was just the next step in making the fast zombie.
I have to agree. I don't know that I've ever seen a zombie movie where I thought that the fast zombie was perfect.
Right.
Quite like this. There's definitely movies where I'm like, oh yeah, that worked, or that worked really well, but to this effect where it's like I can't imagine this movie another way. No.
Right.
It was handled beautifully, I think. Which, if there's nothing else, leaves us just with rating the movie.
It's time to rate it. So, if you are unfamiliar
is.
with the show or you just need a quick catch up, whenever we rate a movie here at Shiver, we only rate it against itself. We've referenced plenty of other movies and how their zombies work and how their stories went, but we're not comparing Train to Busan to those things. We're looking at the product of Train to Busan, whether or not it delivered what it meant to deliver, and honestly, just how much we liked it. So, whenever we do that, we create a unique rating system for every movie. We've done a lot of different things in the past, but for this one, we didn't really get a chance to kick around a lot of things. So, Dave, do you have any ideas?
How about tight sport jackets?
There we go. There it is. Yep.
It's stupid, and I love it.
Hey, it's on brand for you though. You love a sport jacket. So, Dave, out of a possible 5 tight sport jackets, what do you give Train to Busan?
This movie's perfect. And I realized that we gold starred one last week. I'm not gonna give it 6 yet because this is only the first time I've seen this movie, and I may feel differently later, although I sincerely doubt that. But I have to give this 5 tight sport jackets because there's like 27 tight sport jackets throughout this entire movie, and they're tight and they're toit, all right, because they're fucking awesome. But on top of that, it earns every sport jacket in every possible criteria. Like there's no area of this movie where I'd be like, oh, you know what? I wish they'd done this, or I wish they hadn't done that. Everything is exactly perfect. It's magical. I fucking hate myself for not having seen this movie sooner.
Yeah, I have seen this movie sooner and quite a few times, and I am completely and totally comfortable gold starring this thing and giving it 6 out of 5 tight sport jackets. When I went to watch this movie last night, I was like, all right, it's only been since October. Like, I haven't had a chance to forget any of this. Like, there's no way that it's all going to hit as hard as it does when it's been 12 months since I watched it. I was wrong. It all still hit just as hard. It all still gave me goosebumps and made me tear up. God, the fucking scene where he's holding the door closed and he's been bitten and he knows he's done and he's given everything he's got and he looks back at his wife and he screams the name for their daughter and just like, God, remember it. Fuck me. That moment right there is that's the one that puts it over the top on how many tight sport jackets this movie is worth. Every single thing is perfect. There is not a thing I would change. There is not one camera angle that I think is a centimeter off. There is not one color that is over or under saturated. Every single frame of this movie is art, and it just blows me away year after year. So I'm going 6 out of 5 on this one, and I know I just did it last week with Serpent and the Rainbow, but I've got to. It's incredible.
I really wish that I had seen this movie even one time before, because then I would feel confident in that 6 out of 5 tight sport jackets. But as it stands, the total then is 5.5 sport jackets. So I'm going to go ahead and say that it's the left half of one that's missing.
And I think that as we always say, we don't do halves, and generally at a 0.5, because we understand math, we would round up. But I don't think that that's appropriate in this case, because I think
let's round up.
No, I know it's not. We can't. If we redux this, if you end up changing your mind in the future, but I think we can't round up because we can't just give it a 6 when it wasn't completely perfect, when that's what 6 means. So we either have to make an exception to our no halves rule, or we have to make an exception to our rounding up rule. But I don't think that we can get away with
well, we've done halves. What we haven't done is quarters.
That's right. You're right. We do have.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
That's right. We don't do quarters. Never mind.
But to appease all, I'm gonna say that instead of just taking like the left half of a jacket off, what we should do is we should make it one of those like really short tuxedo jackets.
Yeah.
So that it's like the bottom half that's missing. So you're still putting both arms through sleeves,
but you don't have the tails on it. You've
you
lost
go.
the tails on you. Okay, there we go. Because we do, yeah, that's right. We do halves. We don't do quarters. Completely blanked on that. So there you go. 5.5 tight sport jackets for Train to Busan, which Dave fully admits that at some point in the near future will probably go up to being perfect, and then he'll be right. And it's okay that you're wrong this time.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please head over to shiverpod.com, where you can find links to all of our social media outlets. I know I've been a little bit slow on our Instagram here lately. Life's been a little bit busy, but it's cooling down now. We're going to get back to it. I've got if it makes anybody feel any better, I've been like coming up with and saving memes and stuff to my phone. I got a week's worth of material ready to go. I've just been forgetting to post them. So follow us on Instagram. That's where we are the most active. But if you follow us on Facebook or Twitter, you'll see that stuff pop up in either one of those. If you're listening, make sure you give us a chance to check us out live. If you're screaming at your headphones or your car radio right now about something stupid that we said, watch us live, call us out on it on the air, and we'll point it out, and we'll criticize you or take your criticism. We'll see what happes. But check us out. We
guarantee you that we look dumber than we sound.
That's very true. That's very true. But we are Wednesdays 9-8 Central. You can catch us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. All of those places at Shiver Pod. We'd love to hear from you at shiverpod@gmail.com. Let us know if there's a movie that you'd like us to do. We've got vampire movies coming up in April, but we do have 1 week left in March. And Dave, how are we going to round out Zombie Month in the Year of the Monster?
We talked about it on this episode. We've talked about this movie, I would say, once every other month since we started this. So we are going to do Return of the Living Dead. I am really, really excited about this because if you go back to season 1 of Shiver, you will hear an episode of the show about Return of the Living Dead, but it's actually commentary. Neri and I, when we were doing the show together, we tried something out where we were trying to do almost like Mystery Science Theater 3000 and just have like live laugh track going on while the thing was happening. And since that's not really our format now, we have to redo this because I mean, it's Return of the Living Dead. Come on.
Yeah. So we've given you the Haitian Creole zombie. We've given you the running virus zombie, and now we're going to get back to just the roots of Dave's zombie soul, and we're going to go shuffling zombie next week from the George Romero universe, kind of,
sort of,
maybe,
yeah.
So make sure you tune in next week. We'll be doing Return of the Living Dead. And if you follow us on Instagram, we will keep you up to date on all of that. And we'll start to let you know what our vampire movies are going to be.
Absolutely. So on behalf of all of us here at Shiver, fright you very much.